Hello students and viewers, this is Eteta TV from Morogoro, Tanzania. I am Mkini, a history teacher. For today's lesson, I'll be presenting to you on how to answer different history questions of CSEE. And those questions are from the different national examination papers from 2019 to 2020, basing on the topic of colonial economy. Starting with the question appeared in 2018, question was number 7, and the question was read as, assess the main features of colonial trade and commerce in Africa. The candidate required to understand the question by observing the keywords from the question, which was word like assess, features of the colonial trade and commerce. The candidate had to answer the question by considering 3 main parts from this question. The first part is introduction. Under this part, the candidate should introduce the question by showing the definition of key terms, periodization, and participants. According to our question here, the introduction of the key term, the definition of the term is the colonial trade and commerce. Then the periodization should be the 19th century, and the participants mainly here are the Asians and Africans. The second part is the main body. The candidate should assess the main features of colonial trade and commerce in Africa by considering 3 things, namely as points, explanation, and example. When the candidate is citing the point should reflect the explanation he or she is going to explain on it, but also cite an example or examples if possible. For example, according to the question, the point to assess are, number 1, import and export oriented. Under this we mean they exported manufactured goods and imported raw materials to their industries. Number 2, it's based on money economy. In pre-colonial Africa, we had the exchange of goods to goods, but during colonialism, we had the exchange between goods with money. Number 3, monopolized by the whites, especially the Asians. As we said in our introduction, that Asians were the people who engaged much in these trading activities, commerce in general. Number 4, tend to distract local industries. We as historians, as we see that in pre-colonial Africa, we had our own industries where we tend to produce different materials according to our needs. But after the coming of this colonialism, we can see here, due to the importation of manufactured goods, automatically our local industries declined. Number 5, construction of the infrastructure. This is basically infrastructure such as railway and roads for the purpose of transporting raw materials to the coast and also transporting the manufactured goods that came from outside to interior. Number 6, we can see that this trade was an equal exchange. Number 6, the trade was unequal. This is because the materials transferred to their mother countries were with high value, while they came up with their manufactured goods and sold it to Africans with a high price but low quality. And the last part of this question should be conclusion. And the conclusion here should reflect the points explained in the main body. And according to the question above, candidate should reflect the impact of those features. as we said that our question demanded the candidate to state the features of the colonial trade and commerce. And now here, under this conclusion, the candidate must show how this colonial trade affected the Africans, or sometimes in the side of Europeans or Asians. The second question is from 2019. The question was number 7, also was driven from the topic of colonial economy. And the question states that, how was migrant labor beneficial to the capitalist during the colonial period? Limit your response to 60 points. The question required the candidates to explain how migrant was beneficial to the capitalists during the colonial period. As usual, the mode of answering the question must include the important things, which are introduction, main body, and conclusion, as we stated before. And introduction to this question basically must contain the definition of the key term, which is migrant labor, but also periodization. As we can see here, also periodization was between 19th century, and the participants here, we are talking about the Europeans and the Africans as well. The main body to this question should be 60 points, explaining the benefits of the colonialists by using this migrant labor. Those benefits are such as, number 1, migrant labor were cheap in terms of skills. Basically, we can see here that all migrant laborers were unskillful. So they were taken to their different economic activities with no skills for the purpose of paying them low wages. Number 2, source of market to their manufactured goods. They used those migrants' labor as their customers to their manufactured goods from Europe. Number 3, source of colonial revenue to the colonial government. As we can see here, even colonial government were collecting taxes from their people. I mean from their people. So migrant laborers, as normal persons from other places, they had to pay tax to the colonial government wherever they are. Number 4, to ensure maximum exploitation. Those migrant laborers were paid very low wages with long working hours, which you cannot compare with what they were paid. Number 5, to avoid resistance. This is because the people themselves decided to go to the colonialist, maybe farms or industries, for the purpose of working. So nobody forced them to go there for the production. They went themselves independently. Number 6, they were living in camps. As migrant labor were from different areas, different regions, to other places where the economic activities were conducted. So they had to stay together in the place as camps. That was the part of main body, and now we are going to see the last part under this question, which is conclusion. Here the candidates should conclude by reflecting the points explained in the main body by showing the impact of using migrant labor to both Europeans and the Africans. Here now, the candidates is required to see what were the effect now of using those migrant labors. And the effect should be seen in two sides, the sides of Africans and the side of European. Our last question for today's session is from the paper of 2020. The question was number 7, was also set from the topic of colonial economy. And the question is stated that with the examples, explain 6 effects of colonial agriculture in Africa. The candidate should answer this question by considering the format of introduction, main body, and conclusion. On the part of introduction, important things to be included are definition of the key term, periodization, and the participants. According to the nature of our question, we can see that our key term there is colonial agriculture. The students must define what colonial agriculture is. And the second thing is periodization, whereby, according to the nature of the question, here our periodization is 19th century. And the third part under the introduction should be the participants. And according to the nature of the question, also the participants here are the colonialists and the Africans. The second part is the main body. In this part, required the candidates to explain 60 points on effects of colonial agriculture in Africa. Those points are: number 1, intensive exploitation to Africans. Colonial agriculture based on benefiting the colonialists and not the Africans. Number 2, decline of local industries. As we can see here, pre-colonial Africans had their own industries, but according to the introduction of the colonial agriculture. Number 3, created dependency syndrome among the Africans. Africans became much producers for the Europeans. I mean, they used their more times in colonialistic production than their production. Prohibition of cash crops production in some areas. There is some areas where Africans were strictly prohibited from growing cash crops, rather than they had to go to the colonialistic farms in order to produce for them. Number 5, separation of families. In some areas, the Africans were taken far away for the purpose of working for the colonialists and left their families to their homes. Number 6, promoted unity among Africans. It came a time that Africans, they realized that colonialists were there for the purpose of exploiting them, so they had to fight for their liberation. The point above must be explained in terms of essay, focusing on giving explanation to support the point and examples as well, as I said before. So by doing this, the candidate will acquire high marks. The last part of the modality of answering the question is the conclusion. The conclusion should reflect the explanation above. As we said on answering the essay questions, that in conclusion, the candidate should reflect on what she or he has been discussing above. Under this question, we have seen that it demands the candidate to explain on the effect of colonial agriculture. Now here, candidates should show what followed after this colonial agriculture to both Africans and Europeans. The reflection has to show how Africans reacted both negative and positive towards the colonial agriculture. Okay, this is the end of our today's presentation. You were with me, Madam Jane Mkini, as I introduced you before, and we will meet on our next presentation. Go on subscribing Eteta TV from Morogoro, Tanzania.